Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're continuing to dive into what AJ and Hillary have been learning as they take our classes. One of the big takeaways? Well, we gave them an anger exercise, and they had that as part of their homework, and it yielded some wonderful freedom in Hillary's heart. Now in a session, we don't just tell people, hey, you need to give up your anger. That's not how this works. Instead, we ask, what would it feel like to let go of that anger, to not have that anymore? And that question alone can unlock so much in a person's heart. And we're not trying to short circuit the process. If anything, what often gets short circuited is our understanding of why we hold on to anger in the first place. We're often told, just let it go. But in actuality, that doesn't address the deeper reasons we're clinging to it in the first place. Our goal in sessions isn't just to find unresolved anger and hand it over to God like some kind of cheap but well-intentioned transaction. The real goal? Exposing false core beliefs, receiving God's experiential truth, and allowing that truth to transform our hearts. It's about being restored closer to the likeness of Jesus, more filled with His love, so that we can love others well and bring healing to a broken and often corrupt world. It's not a whole lot of fun to discover how anger is deeply embedded in our hearts. But what's the appeal to that? Well, because it has this often subtle, false protective nature that makes people cling to it. Intellectually, we might know that God sees everything, that no one truly gets away with sin. Not us, not others, not ever. But deep in our brains, especially the right brain, which is wired for self-protection, there are subconscious false beliefs running in the background. Things like, if I let go of this anger, they'll get away with it. Or, my anger is protecting me from being hurt again. It gives me power or control. Again, this is in the background quite often. Things like, staying angry keeps me strong or keeps me guarded against future harm. Another one is, if I forgive, that means what they did was okay, or I'm letting them off the hook. Anger can feel like a way to maintain control in an otherwise powerless situation. This can happen at many levels as people drill down into those hidden places. Many believe that forgiving others means excusing the harm that was done to them, but that's also a misunderstanding. Forgiveness isn't saying what happened was okay, it's refusing to let anger keep us in bondage. Many of you have probably heard that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's a great saying, and it's helpful to have that understanding in our left logical brain, and even more powerful when it gets embedded in our right brains experientially. I'll unpack this more as we do a post-mortem on AJ and Hillary's homework assignment in the podcast. But first of all, let's talk about something else that people say. Anger motivates me. Now, don't get me wrong, anger can drive action. That's true. But for a follower of Jesus, that's not how we're called to live. Just because something is useful doesn't mean it's good. Think about Paul. He didn't say, I run this race fueled by my anger. No, he said, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus, in Philippians 3. His motivation wasn't frustration or resentment. It was love, devotion, and the calling of God in his life. Or look at Jesus himself. If anyone had the right to be fueled by anger, it was him. He saw injustice, hypocrisy, and the corruption of people's hearts. But his motivation was never anger. It was love. Even when Jesus overturned the tables in the temple, it wasn't about personal offense. It was about his zeal for his Father's house in John 2. The deep injustice that was happening there. The temple had become a place where the most needy and vulnerable were being exploited. His anger wasn't about himself. It was about defending those who couldn't defend themselves. So yes, anger can push us forward, but love transforms. Love sustains. Love is what we were made for. But before we get into our discussion, I want to share something exciting. As you might have heard, we've launched the 100 Club. It's an opportunity for 100 households, churches, organizations, or companies to commit to giving $100 per month to sustain and expand this work. Right now, we have 30 members, and honestly, many are giving far beyond that. It's humbling to see how God is moving through those who believe in this mission. And here's the thing. We at Cross Counsel are stepping into deeper faith as well. We believe the Lord is giving us clear direction this year, one that's going to stretch us, challenge us, and expand our reach in ways we couldn't orchestrate on our own. Like I said last week, we'll share more soon, but for now, I ask you to pray, not just about how you might support this work financially, but about the people God is raising up to step into deeper facilitation of the melt process. And if what we're doing resonates with you, if you've experienced transformation through this work or see the need for others to encounter it, we invite you to partner with us. Whether it's a one-time gift or joining the 100 Club, your support directly fuels this ministry and makes it possible for more people to experience true healing. You can give online at crosscouncil.com. Just click the donate button. And if you're able, setting up an automatic direct bank withdrawal is the most efficient way to give. It keeps fees low and it maximizes your impact. But more than anything, we ask you to pray. Ask the Lord how He's leading you, not just in giving, but in stepping deeper into this mission. We're excited for what's ahead, and we're so grateful to have you with us. Oh, and lest I forget, for those of you who are in or near Wisconsin, don't forget about our annual Cross Council Golf Classic on June 20th. We need volunteers, golfers, and sponsors to make this another successful event. All right, here we go with the conversation.
I feel like I've learned, okay, so having not grown up in the TPM world, but having been heavily influenced by it for the past 5 years.
I've been dating that long, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
For the past 5 years. I feel like I know a lot about it, but there's so much from the class that I'm learning, that I'm like light bulbs are going on, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and it's changed the way I do my sessions
Mm-hmm.
because I understand the process even further. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Lord still brought freedom to me before, but I actually had I actually did TPM on myself in the
Yeah.
homework.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because this week's exercise is about anger, right?
mm-hmm.
And we talked about how anger is, at least contextually to TPM, is a secondary emotion. It is a quote unquote protective emotion. It's a
Yeah.
reaction to a thing that you believe about a situation. And the barricade of anger can be preventative to get to the thing that actually is your belief and is your wound,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So the exercise was to find a memory that made you angry and to explore it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I got stuck. You did not get stuck.
No, I didn't get stuck. Do you want to talk about your experience first, though?
Yeah, so I will appreciate the feedback I will inevitably get after I say what I'm going to say. In that I took the exercise to be what's a time that made you angry, and the intention of the homework was okay, what's another time that made you feel angry in that same way? And what did you believe about the anger? Are you able to give that anger to God? Um, and then what's underneath that? And can you give that to God too? Right. So you got a level deeper to an older memory, gave the anger to God, and then got to the lie-based belief, right? So ish, is that
I, th- I,
shorthand for?
no, I feel like I addressed the anger in the most recent memory, and then, you know what? Should I just share my experience first? Will that be helpful?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay. Um, so my experience was, one of the things you learn about when you're talking about anger is that there are really common lies behind anger. And one of the lies is, if I let go of my anger, like they are going to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in a session with you, Steve, we got stuck because I was going back to my divorce and there was a whole lot of anger associated with my divorce. And you're like, well, what does it mean if you let go of the anger? And I said, well, it means he wins, right? He gets away with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so while I'm setting up to do the homework, I'm like, okay, this is where we're going to go, clearly, this is where I'm going to sit and try to practice with it. And so I sat down with the Lord and just, was like, okay, there's a lot of anger and a lot of memories that have anger when it comes to my divorce. So where do you want me to go, Lord? And I just felt like the Lord kind of was like, it doesn't matter which memory you go to, just whichever one pops up in your mind. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was the day that my ex-husband told me that he wanted a divorce and wanted to be done. And so I, kind of gave that to the Lord, and the Lord, uh, uh, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. It was, um, if, okay, so I was like, okay, Lord, if I let go of this anger, it'll mean that he gets away with it. And I felt like the Lord said, well, what does that mean? And for me, it was, well, then that means that he was justified in what he did and everything he did to me. And just felt like the Lord spoke truth to that, to the point where I was able to actually let go of that anger. But then the Lord was like, okay, but if he was justified, like go back to that lie of if he was justified, what does that mean about you? And for me, it was, well, then it means that I was worthless. Like I'm as worthless, and I deserved all of that.
Mm.
And that walked me through. I actually followed the lie, and the lie walked me through to memory that I had on the playground when I was very, very little. And a boy that I liked, I had left him a love note, one of many. I was very in love with this boy. And every time I would leave him one of these love notes, he would ignore me or throw it away or whatever. And so this was one of those times where I had left him a note, and I went running out to the playground at recess and was hiding in the log cabin to see like what was his reaction going to be. And he didn't react at all. He did nothing. He just went and played with his friends. And that little girl really felt like she was worthless and not worth his time, you know?
Mhm.
And so the Lord spoke truth to me in that moment, like truth that had me sitting up in the room, just sobbing, joyful tears because of the Lord's truth, and I walked back through all those memories up until my divorce and just felt genuine peace. When I got to the memory of my divorce, I felt like the Lord said, are you still angry? And I said, well, in the memory, I'm angry. And I felt like that was okay. Like it was okay that in that memory and in that moment, there is justified anger in that. But it was something that I could let go of now, and could actually forgive my ex-husband. And I will say that I have many times sat with the Lord and been like, Lord, I want to forgive him. I want to move on. I don't want to hold on to this anymore. But every time I say I forgive him, like another thing comes up that makes me angry, and I'm sitting in my car driving fuming about what he did, you know. It wasn't until this TPM session that I did on myself that I was able to genuinely forgive him. And now the thought of him, wherever he's at in his life, whatever he's doing, the thought of him even just like having a really wonderful life that used to make me really angry, it doesn't make me angry anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, that was my experience. So maybe that's helpful too for you.
Yeah, can I chime in on a couple things
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that anger isn't the problem.
Right.
It's what's underneath there. And even going back to one of the first things that you said, if I let go of the anger, he wins. Well, what does that speak to? Competition.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of us are more competitive than others. And there might be a reason for that. It might not just be genetic. It might be how we've interpreted life. Because even that little girl who's handing a note, she's trying to win that boy's affection
Yeah.
because there's something inside of her that's missing. There's something inside of all of us that's missing, right? All of us have these voids in our heart. But if we frame it up that way, and we're really not in the business of analysis, but I'm just kind of talking through this and seeing where you land with it too. But
Yeah.
uh, when I get rejected, when I don't get the response that I want, then we take that as I'm worthless, which is twisted. And you could almost put it in terms of I lose. And I'm not,
Mm.
I'm half leaving you and that little girl, but just to help people understand the depth of where things can come from.
Right.
And so none of us like to lose. And the idea of attachment or connection is just so fundamental in our humanity. And that little girl was looking for connection and didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the first time, right? There's other things that happen in our lives, regardless of how well we're parented, where we take things because it's always easier to look at things from the negative perspective. It'll be interesting how that continues to play out because the more that you are more deeply connected to how you were intended to be, the image of God, the more the 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 shine returns to the likeness, how much
Yeah.
freedom there is, that idea that we're rooted and established in love and we're motivated, going back to what AJ said as well. uh, Paul talks about It's his kindness that leads us to repentance, which is a change in thinking. It isn't our brokenness doesn't lead us to a change in thinking. It can help us accomplish this thing or that thing or that thing, but it still leaves us feeling miserable. And the difference between an external reality, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this, and I should think this way, and I shouldn't think that he, I hope that he has a horrible life, because then I'm winning. The more security that we have from God's truth,
Yeah.
wow, look at how that's already playing out in your heart.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really excited about it. But anyway, how does that, so your experience was very different.
Yeah, and I'll be intentionally nondescript, but the memory of anger that I have was, uh, I would say, for the purposes of the exercise, slightly confused in that it wasn't something that this person's done to me. It's something this person's done to people I care about. And this person is still in a position to repeat the things that have made me angry or that I've chosen to be angry about, right? To be
Mm-hmm.
proper.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not directed at me. This person's never done anything that was like, Bill, it's not his name. Bill did thing to me and that
Yeah.
wronged me, and therefore I'm angry,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's been external people I care about, but the
Mm-hmm.
same ideas are present in that if I don't stay angry at person, they'll get away with it. If I don't stay angry at person, it means what they did is okay. If I don't stay angry at person, then it's going to happen again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to find an older memory that was related to me in terms
Mm-hmm.
of anger, where I had been wrong, then I got stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find an older place where the anger was had something done to me directly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got hung up on like, okay, well, this situation is still active. This
Mm-hmm.
person's still,
Mm-hmm.
because it's different than, I didn't know what you were going to have when you went through the exercise because you went second, but your ex-husband's not around anymore. The situation is closed off. Whereas the situation that I'm thinking of is like ongoing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easier for me to hang on to. In my heart, I still am. I'm not saying I
Mm-hmm.
should, but in my heart, I still am
Mm-hmm.
hanging on to, yeah, but I need to be angry at this person because I need to protect everybody
Mm-hmm.
because it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'll just jump in just for a second too, and actually go back a little bit to what Hillary was saying before too. And again, anger is not the problem. And when anger is covering up those vulnerable emotions that are driven by the lies we believe, okay, we can't always address anger by the front door. So that's how I look at it. You got to address anger by the back door. You need to get underneath it. You need to go around and get to the emotion to whatever degree. Hopefully get to some memory where you bought into the lie, identify those lies, go through that process like you did with that girl in the playground with the note of that boy that you liked in that place. Okay, that set you free. You experienced a shift. Your heart was persuaded of the truth in that moment. Therefore, like you didn't even address if you'd been angry with that boy
Right.
but then the more that you have that transformational moment, then you can look at a moment that maybe not all of it was lie based. Maybe it was truth based. Maybe there are some things that you had a right to be angry about.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that we just can, when we're ready, straight up give to Jesus. What we don't usually have a capacity to do as far as giving up anger is when it's tethered to something else.
Mm.
Okay. So AJ, as you share that, yeah, there's sometimes it's difficult to just, okay, feel the anger in the present, try to feel the anger in the past. I would suggest, and it probably wasn't included in the homework because there was probably a simplicity that we were trying to accomplish in that. But even in the anger in the present, and you've touched on it a little bit, it's how does it feel not to be able to protect? Okay. Because there's a conclusion I can't protect. There's a part of me that wants to, but then even in the present, okay, well, I don't need to be the protector of everything. You're called as a man to be the head of the home and to be a protector, and that's part of your makeup. You're a guardian. You really are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but touching upon that more vulnerable emotion when it's out of control, or how how much does that touch I'm not good enough? How much does that touch I'm worthless? How much does that trust I'm not enough? Touch those things and feel that, and just be wide open to where your mind goes or where the Lord nudges, and
Mm.
not necessarily having to follow the anger, but follow the primary emotion, the vulnerable emotion, not the secondary emotion. So that's the
That's the
thing.
back door.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's free for everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
I love this stuff. I really do. So I appreciate you guys sharing both of those things. So a question that we continue to explore across council, maybe not always in these words or this terminology, but I kind of like it. What would it mean to look or to be in a place where you're totally untriggerable or unmanipulatable? And I know those might not technically be words, but I think I am going to use them because I like them. So yeah, to not have those triggers, to not be so easily manipulated. And as I let you guys think about that, I was going through some old video, and there was a video of a man going through a thing with his son. This man wasn't, as he said, gainfully employed at the time, and he was probably in his late 40s, early 50s, and he was recognizing that he was just being a poor example for his son, having lost a job and not being able to find one. And so there was all this hurt that was attached to that. And then it was compounded by maybe how his son was reacting with the way that this guy was carrying himself as well. And later, after the melt process or the TPM process was over, the facilitator was talking about how he's recognized that um, even though he has a really good relationship with one of his kids, he has a really good relationship. He also recognized in retrospect, wow, that kid knew how to push my buttons. If that kid didn't want to do something,
Mm-hmm.
he knew mom's buttons, he knew my buttons, and he would weave his way through this amazing path to make sure he could get out of a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, huh, that's even more evil because he knows the process. He knows what he's doing. But
Mm-hmm.
that person facilitating realized, well, okay, it was because I was manipulatable because tapped into my insecurities. Thoughts?
What does it look like to be untriggerable?
Mm-hmm. And actually, even to be more specific, because I think if you see, you know, some guy steal a woman's purse, you don't go, well, good thing I'm not triggered anymore. So tough luck. Right?
Yeah.
You chase
Right.
after that guy, right? So untriggerable in the sense of lie-based thinking, not
Right.
the not truth-based things.
I'm usually on the prowl for some good old-fashioned righteous anger because then I can feel vindicated in it. Uh, I am. I'm just being honest. I like when I feel like I could stand with my anger before God and be like, yeah, I'm good with you thinking about that. Anyway, it would have to become a witness to people because you
Mhm.
would be so abnormal. In a small example, right? Because I'm not untriggerable, but
Mhm.
to make a long story short, my car got totaled because some dude on pills knocked a lamppost into it while I was at work. That story is
Mhm.
more fun in the long version, but we'll be quick.
Mhm.
My car got totaled because of nothing I did.
Mhm.
And I had coworkers who were more prone to anxious behaviors and mentalities. Like, aren't you like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's just a car. I'm okay. I have insurance.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
police got the guy. I'm good,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and one more thing, the transmission was going on it too.
Oh yeah, I was happy for that car to die. Actually, that's true. That's true.
Just to
Yeah.
give the
Yeah,
full
the
picture, but
the
yeah,
2004
Yeah.
Nissan Altima was starting to cough out. Yeah, I was happy about that.
yeah. But still,
Um,
you were you still could have overreacted.
Totally.
Like that's
Yeah,
still mine. That's still right.
right, that shouldn't have happened. That dude shouldn't have been on pills going 50 miles an hour down Cass Street, skipping the median and rolling his car over a lamppost into me,
Right.
into my stuff. Yeah, no, I totally could have overreacted. I remember getting funny looks from one of my coworkers like, I'm good. You're not gonna freak out. I'm like, it's just a car. It's just stuff, and I don't live that far away.
Mm-hmm. And you'll get an upgrade.
Yeah, I didn't do yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll get money off this guy. Or at least his insurance company. Yeah, I didn't I don't know if I would have quantified it as truth-based thinking. Maybe I should have, but I wouldn't have at the time, and I think I had a missed opportunity for ministry with that girl at that time.
Mm,
Like it's just stuff,
Yeah.
and stuff doesn't have a bearing on my on who I am and what I'm worth in
mm.
the eyes of the creator. It's just a car, you know. That's
Yeah.
all that came out of my lips was just a car, but it's really was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, that actually makes me think about for me it's I people think I'm funny sometimes when I mother because I, I don't know this is maybe just an area again because I'm not untriggerable either by any
right.
means, but
Neither am I.
yeah, but this is maybe just an area where I have more peace. And it's Levi getting hurt is one of the things that I just am like, I think he'll be okay. Like I'm always assessing the situation and making sure that there is no danger, right?
Yeah.
And then, he'll be crawling around on the couch and like towards the edge a little bit and being a little wonky, and I'll be with my friends and they'll just be like jumping like anxious that he's too close to the edge, and I can see like the couch is not that far off the ground and it's carpet underneath, so if he falls, like he'll be okay, he'll learn. And but like that like can't that doesn't cause anxiety to me. Like I can watch
Mm,
my child play and know he's okay. He's
mhm,
fallen off the couch a couple times and every time he's totally fine. Or like when he's eating food, like he's getting better at eating different kinds of foods. And the other day I just had an example. He was eating peanuts. And that's one of the foods that maybe is a little more difficult for him, but like he has to do it at some point, you
Hmm.
know?
mhm,
And so a couple of my friends were like, "Are you sure he can eat those? Are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he'll figure it out." Like,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of everything. I'm not high anxiety, like stressed out about what he's doing and,
mhm,
all the time. I'm just,
mhm,
I'm always assessing, making sure he's okay, so it's not like I'm I'm not neglecting my child.
Hmm.
I hope
mhm.
that's not how this is coming off. But I'm just not triggered by those things that can cause fear and anxiety in, I think, a lot of other moms.
Right.
Yeah, you're not shoving big apple slices down his throat.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
using it with a plunger, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You're
Yeah.
letting him grow up.
Yeah.
Another thought I just had was in the workplace now. I'm a supervisor, right? So I have direct reports, and they interact with the rest of the production floor, and right. And one of the things that one of my coworkers likes to do, one of my reports, is put people on the spot. And I think what he says to me, I'm just thinking about this now for the first time. Like
Mm,
the way that he puts me on the spot, I think would be nerve-wracking for a lot of people. In that,
Mm.
like, hey, here's situation.
mhm,
Situation is wrong because, and then he would look right at me. What are you gonna do about it? I think I think a lot of people could soak that moment up and like someone pointing, "What are you gonna do about it?"
mhm.
And bang, the emotions go all the way to the ceiling.
Whew, my emotions are going up just
Right.
thinking about
Mm.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Next
Yeah.
session. All
So
right. Good.
this is just not right, like not to go, toot my own horn, right? Because I got problems, but that's like that doesn't. I respond to it, right? It's not like, oh, I don't care, because that
Mm,
would be another way of reacting poorly. But it pings my emotional radar, but like I can still be cool, calm, collected in the moment, like, what am I gonna do about that? And just take the question honestly,
mm.
because I don't think he's like actually trying to grill me and embarrass me, but getting put on the spot like that, I think would be really rough for
For a lot of the
a lot
people.
of people. Yeah.
Mhm,
I just get, what if somebody says like a passive aggressive comment to you and you don't think about it for months and months and months?
Yeah.
What if they say something kind of mean and you don't think about it and analyze it and you're anxious over it?
Hmm. I struggle with that with one coworker to have the opposite, example with the one coworker that yelled at me.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, and he was right. That's the thing that bothered me. Like, that he was right. He was like, yeah, whatever. He was critiquing me, and I took it home with me and talked it over with Hilly. I'm just like, gosh, that's not fun, but he is right. But it did bug me until I made it right with them. definitely was triggered.
But that's maturity at some level too, right? To
Yeah.
go,
Yeah,
he's
it
right.
is. Yeah, but I would say that the emotional reaction
Yeah.
touched on you're worthless, you're
Mhm.
worthless and insufficient, and someone's
Mhm.
gonna find out eventually. And it touched that.
Mhm.
It touched on you're a fraud, or you're not that hard of a worker, or you're lazy or whatever. And that's why, like, right, the maturity was to come back around and make it right with him, but the
Mhm.
immaturity was to like bring it home and not fall asleep for half an hour thinking about it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, no, but I think that's a really great place to pause and just say, okay, two things can be true at the same time. That yes, that did touch a button, that did push a button. But as far as that guy's concerned, maybe you handled it well. Okay.
Right.
Which is better than how some people might handle that. They might
Yeah.
might go off in so many different directions that's more destructive to the relationship or their employment future
Just because your
or
emotional response is inappropriate doesn't mean that there's not truth in the situation.
right. Right. So you can recognize, and you have, right, that there was some maturity in how you handled it. But if you don't want to continue to repeat the trigger, that okay, there's some worthless stuff that still needs to be unearthed, removed, disintegrated in my heart, and filled with God's truth,
Yep.
exposing more of the real likeness and image of who I am in Jesus. So, but
Yeah.
I just did a session with somebody who's like, okay, well, when that happens, I do this and I go and take a walk, I do this, and then I just get myself right, is kind of what this person was saying. Like, okay, that's better than not doing that. But hey, let's just see if we can do some deeper work with why it takes you so long to at least get in that space in your head.
Right.
The more that darkness is exposed to the light, and not just exposed, but resolved with the truth and love of Jesus. Wow. Then maybe that 10-minute walk that you need to take to get right becomes a 5-minute walk. And then it just takes standing up and stretching. And then I don't even need to do that anymore because I continue to go to this place or that place or that place or that place, finding more of who we truly are, who who we're intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
Was there more you wanted to say about that situation, Age? Or did you pretty much?
No, not
Yeah.
without. No, that's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, that
Okay.
covers it.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. And of course, we always go back to Jesus, right? No matter what people threw at him, whether it was accusations or questions meant to ensnare him or trap him, right?
Right.
I think there were probably even attempts to flatter him, right? Getting Jesus on my side, right? We still do that. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, not only things they threw at him, but they even wanted to throw him off a cliff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he constantly reacted in an upside down way, right? He always threw people off their game. That's just who Jesus was, because he didn't have to get sucked into the trigger, didn't have to get sucked into manipulation, right? He's not just truth. He's the embodiment of truth. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain it, right? But that's where we talk about being strong, steady, sturdy, secure, right? That's Jesus, right? This internal strength, and not to mention the wisdom. I think we can exercise more wisdom when we're not triggered. I think we actually display resilience because of what he does inside of us. And that's kind of a big word for people today, is resilience. And that
Mm-hmm.
resilience can come out of bitterness and resentment and being miserable and or even denial, suppression, repression. But I want my resilience to come out of a place of peace, sort
Mm-hmm.
of like at Quick Trip, and you can just say it's just a car. Oh, you were resilient in that moment without trying to be resilient. That was
Yeah, I wasn't putting on a brave
Right.
face, right? Not that
right,
I haven't done that before, but specifically that.
right. So, well, hey, I think this was a great conversation. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Of course.
You bet.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Cross Counsel podcast. Keep pursuing transformation with a courageous heart, open to what only He can do. There are many ways to get involved. Pray for us, consider supporting us, share these podcasts, and if you haven't already, take the step to jump in yourself. We'll see you next time.